All right, guys, we are live again. Welcome to Mastering Avantra session 2. Not that anybody's counting or that you need to watch them in a specific order, but today we're coming together again. I've got Tyler Constable, Director of Sales Engineering, with us. I've got Tim Reiss, who is what is your official title, Tim? I should know this.
Technical Customer Success Manager.
Excellent. Technical Customer Success Manager.
Avantra Ninja.
Ninja, I like that. Can I have Ninja in my title? So today we're coming together to talk about checks, and more checks, I think was what we said we would talk about. So there's a concept within Avantra called checks, which are just standard as they sound. Checks, they check things out of the box. But then we also have concepts of custom checks and composite checks. So Tyler, why don't we start with you? Do you want to give us a kind of brief overview of what the three of those are? And then let's just dive into the system and go from there.
Yeah, so the within Avantra, there's a lot of things that we do, and in prior video we talked about how there's the foundation of customers and then systems. Now we're getting into the checks. We keep building on top of that, right? So we're going to talk about checks, and the checks are the starting point to everything else in Avantra. So it's important to note too that our checks, the majority of them are proprietary to Avantra, right? So these are checks that may be similar to other solutions, but they're actually all within our own coding and our own namespace, essentially certified by SAP. So they may be similar to other solutions you've seen, but we go and we collect the data a little differently. We pull out more data than other solutions. So there's other things we do too. So as Brenton mentioned, those are just the native checks. When we go, we'll be doing a video soon where we're connecting a system. You'll see that all the checks automatically come in. So that's really cool. But on top of that, we also have this thing called custom checks, where you can go even deeper into some areas that you want to. You can go into non-SAP things as well. And then you get into composite checks, which is really interesting as well. From a high level, you can take multiple checks and have them act as a single check. So where that becomes important is like maybe there's an example where there's different performance metrics where CPU and memory, if CPU pegs, at 7 in the morning every day for 10 minutes, that may be a problem, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's like, yeah, okay, we've got all the end users just logging on for 10 minutes. I don't care. I just stop alerting me about that. But perhaps if CPU pegs and memory pegs, the two of them together is a problem. So that's what the composite check is. Essentially, you can say, hey, these 2 things are occurring, or these 7 things are occurring, or 5 of the 7 things are occurring. Now I'm gonna, make this thing go critical and put it on a dashboard, send out a notification, so on and so forth. So from a high level, that's just kind of what we'll be talking about today. We'll go through a couple demonstrations of that. And yeah, I think that's kind of it for a high level.
Awesome. So why don't we go ahead and dive into the system? I think, Tim, you said you drive today, didn't you?
I did. I was voluntold.
Voluntold.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead and try and share your screen? And once we're up and running, then I think let's just dive straight in.
Let me make sure I get the right one and we're all set.
Yeah, we've all done that. Oops, didn't mean to share that one. Awesome. Yeah, you're good. I can see it.
Awesome.
Cool. So where Tim is here, he's in a list of SAP systems here.
SAP systems.
So
page 2, and I think we said
that's it.
This one right here, right?
Yep. And then
I double clicked in. Did you want me to go in a different way, or are we all good?
No, it's perfect. On the right hand side, if you there's a little secret here for everyone. So when Avantra opens up a screen, what it does is it opens everything up half by half. So essentially, you'll see the top half of Tim's screen right now. You can still see the system, so this makes it easy. So you can easily get back and forth. And on the bottom half is the system he's currently in. If you want it to go full screen, on the right-hand side in the middle, there's a little thumbtack. Right there. It says
right here.
Undock. Yep. So just a nice little way to
Tyler,
move around.
I feel like I'm going to have to go away and come up with like a jingle and a graphic that's like Tyler's secret knowledge about Avantra or Tyler's tips and tricks. Da 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 da. Yesterday it was how to turn off notifications. Today it's how to dock and go full screen. I love it.
Try. Hey, you guys, yeah, you should see. There's something else too. It's really crazy. I have to remember how to do this here. You know what? Never mind. There's a way you can actually make it go from bottom, top to left, or right as well, but we'll worry about that some other time. So, all right. So there's, as we're in the systems here, in the system, there's a set of tabs that have just opened up. We'll go through in a different video going through all of these, but the one we're going to focus on today are the checks. Now, yep, perfect. So before we get into the checks, essentially what you see here, right below your mouse, Tim, you'll see there's the little red, yellow, green boxes. Essentially, if you select those, was one of them. If you do the one on the far left, which is the critical one, if you just select that, everything that's critical now, we don't have anything critical in the system right now, or on the real-time monitoring, but it just shows just those. And if you want it to be everything, you can just unselect everything, and it'll actually now default back to everything. So just a nice little thing there as well.
So it's kind of neat because I can select two of them and it'll show. Well, if there was things to show, right? It would show those two. So critical and warnings, I could see just those, or I can see just one.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Now on the left-hand side, we're actually in what's called RTM right now, which is real-time monitoring. Tim, if you select the all button real quick, and we'll come back to this in a second, we should have some critical stuff in here. So yeah, so now if you go back and click the red button, now just the critical stuff shows up. So what we actually just did there on the left-hand side, when I had Tim go to the all button, what that is our checks are broken up in two different ways. There's real-time monitoring and there's daily checks. Real-time monitoring, this is what's happening in the system right now. So on the different check cycles, right? So there's 3 different check cycles. There's uptime, which is run every minute. There are like the normal check time, which is essentially 5 minutes by default that it's going to go out and collect this information. And then there's also what's called a pulse that has to be manually triggered. That is for things like if you wanted to see a live graph, right? So what's the live graph of CPU? That'll essentially be a pulse then. But typically you're just going to be at the 5-minute range, except for uptime, which is every minute. So that's what real-time monitoring is. And Tim, if you wouldn't mind, if you could unselect the red, the critical thing there. You'll see here, the real-time monitoring, there's a short dumps there. You'll see kind of the second one down. And then also lower, if you scroll down kind of into the green section, there's going to be another short dumps down here. There, so somewhere in there, there it is. So you'll see short dump stat. Okay. So why is it in here twice? This goes back to the real-time monitoring and the daily. Okay. So the real-time monitoring, we're looking at short dumps as we see here. And Tim, if you wouldn't mind, all of these on the, in the result column, there's 3 little dots that Tim's got his mouse on. If you select that, that's going to show more information for all these checks. So from a real-time monitoring perspective, what Avantra is doing is saying, all right, how many short dumps occurred in the last X amount of time? And by default, it's the last 60 minutes. So over the last hour, how many short dumps have occurred? And you'll see here, there's 3, and we get the information on those 3 short dumps. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind closing out of this, and we go back up to the top, and there's that other short dumps up there. Now, if you do the button there again, the 3 little dots, now we see this is the longer list. What this is the daily check. This is the one that runs once per day, and it collects all of the information of what's happened over the last day, right? Now it's important to note that pull happens in the early morning. I think by default, it might be 7 a.m. And again, that can be changed. But what's also important to note is on Mondays, by default, it runs all the way back through Friday, right? So it's not going to run on Saturday. It's not going to run on Sunday, but you'll still get that information. It's just going to run from the Monday run that runs all the way back to Friday. And now we can modify that as well. You can have it run every day as you'd like. You can set that up as well. But so here, and so the kind of going back here, the daily checks are more used more for reporting. All right, so this is where you can have your interactive reports where you log into Avantra, you can click through and see the health of your system. You can go back, a week, a day, a year, a month, what have you, right, and see what's going on. The real-time monitoring is used more for dashboards, notifications, triggering automation, all of those concepts. You wouldn't really trigger automation based on a daily check because it's just a ton of information, right? And that's not really relevant as to right now. So Timothy, if you wouldn't mind closing out and then just show, so we're in the all button. Tim, if you go back down to the daily one here, you'll see now here, these are the daily checks just by themselves. Now, each of these checks, Tim, if you wouldn't mind, can you go up to the real-time monitoring again? And let's go into the short dumps, lower on the far bottom. And if you just double click it, you get some more information. So here's the current information that's going on. You'll see a new set of tabs have opened up. So if you select the history button, you'll actually see what's been going on in here. So you can see, oh yeah, hey, it's been going in and out of warning and critical status. I'm sorry, warning and okay status. Looks like, every couple of hours. So this is nice. You can get a history view of just this one particular check. And then Tim, if you select the chart button kind of right to the left of your mouse, you can get a nice little chart. So here you can see the date range on the bottom. I'm sorry, on the left. Yeah, there you go. And then the days essentially is, hour, midnight, 00 all the way over to 24, left to right. And you can see how long this particular check has been in those statuses day over day. So pretty cool way to visualize this stuff if you've got, management or if you've got, if you've got a specific, functional person or business unit that wants to see how long has this check been in what cycle, you can actually pull this up and provide this to them, which is pretty nice. All right, and if you click out of this, Tim, the next tab is notification messages. Now, I don't think we're going to have anything in our system here, but this is where you would see what notifications have gone out for this one check on this one system at this one customer. So you can see what notifications there are. Now to get out of here, Tim, right in the middle of your, there's a little breadcrumb trail right below your mouse there. It says SAP system, RIEPRD. Yep, that right there. Yep, you select that guy. And now we're over here back at our system. Now, if we scroll back down to our short dumps, last time we double clicked it. This time, if you right click it, here's a new set of options. All right, we're going to go through a couple of these here. The first one, it's a couple bit down. We're not actually going to run it now, but you'll see there's an execute now. If you wanted to just run this one check now, so maybe it's, the check cycles every 5 minutes. You come in, you happen to catch it at minute 2, and you really want to know what's going on. You can come in here and manually execute this check right now. The other important thing in here is the configured check right there. Yep. So each of these checks in here, you can actually select this one. Each of these checks is made up of multiple parameters. Or we'll get into the parameters a little bit here more, but essentially you'll see here all of each parameter. Again, each check has multiple parameters. So this one here, there's short dump count crit, short dump count warning, short dump time span. There's even more than these. So Tim, if you select the new button and then just hit the drop down there, these are the other short dumps. So you can do just do short dump max count. Yeah, that one there, just as an example, and do okay. And then we'll have to find, where did that go? Oh, right there. There it is. Right. Yep. And then so what happens here is the default value that Avantra automatically assigns comes in what's called the default value column, which is the gray column. On the left-hand side, you'll see there's some gray, but there's also some white ones. I'll talk about why those ones on the left are gray in just a second. But what we want to do here is actually, or it says 1,000. Let's just put in 900. And then do apply on the top left. Okay. So this is how one way we can see the check results. I'm sorry, not the check results, the configuration, the parameters for this one specific check again. So these are the ones that are relevant to short dumps. So if we close out of here, we're going to go back in to, we're going to go back in a different way in that. But before we get over there, a couple more things while we're looking at the short dump stat here. If you wouldn't mind right clicking this again, when we get into notifications, there's ways, there'll probably be another video, but we'll come back to this. There's ways, you'll see there's a confirm and an unconfirm. Tim, if you actually select the confirm, what this means is, let's say short dump count stat was in critical status and you've got your notification set up to go every 5 minutes, right? So yeah, okay, let's say it's a system down, right? You get a system down message alert to your cell phone. and then you get one 5 minutes later, then 5 minutes later, and 5 minutes later, and you're working on it, right? You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're troubleshooting. The last thing you want is to just your phone.
There's nothing worse than that alert fatigue that comes at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all been on the receiving end of it at one point or another.
And it's glorious.
It's like, I know.
And not only that, though, there's multiple people who are getting this alert. So if you come in and confirm and put a message, hey, I'm looking into this alert and checking on it, it alerts or it tells everybody else that it's being looked at, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So here you can see this is it. So Tim, this is going to be confirmed by Tim. The message, you could just say, Tim, if you wouldn't mind, just I'm working on it, or leave me alone, or whatever. And then you'll see that we can actually have it then go back out of confirmed status after 12 hours. So you'll see there's the after period, time 12 hours. Now that's fine. Maybe it's, you want alerts to come back out after an hour. Essentially, if I'm still working at this thing for an hour and I can't figure it out, let's set alerts out again. So do okay. Perfect. And then if you select the refresh button on the top right, maybe not. You select it again. Okay, you'll see short dump stat went away here. So if you scroll up now,
it might be worth using the showing the filter function as well, because that's quite a useful one that I keep going back to.
Thank you. Good idea. So yeah,
I have my uses on these streams the odd time.
So to Brenton's point, which is very helpful,
An excellent point. An excellent point.
Yeah. So we've been scrolling up and down here. You see Tim's mouse here. There's actually a search box. So if you just type in short or short dumps,
and the one I quite like as well is the so kind of in the center of your screen as well, Tim. You can see the traffic lights. So the red, amber, green. You can use those as well to kind of just show the ones that are in red, or just to show the ones that are in green. I use that quite a bit as well, just to kind of filter my view. It's quite nice.
And we could even done the confirm button and the unconfirm as well.
Yeah, good point.
We're gonna make this complicated. So there it is. You can see there it is, and there's a little white check that shows that this is confirmed. And you can actually, Tim, if you right click it again, you can actually do an unconfirm, I believe. Yep, unconfirm. And then just say yes. And now it's back into when we refresh it, it'll go back into unconfirmed status. It might just take a second. So again, this is going to be highly relevant when we get back into notifications at a later time. So, all right. So each of these checks, if you remember, is made up of multiple monitoring parameters, what we call parameters. Now, what we did last time is we just right-clicked and did configure, and we saw the checks that were relevant to just short dump stat at the example. Another way to view that, Tim, is if you go to the Moni Params tab. So here's a list of all of those monitoring parameters that roll up to the checks that we were just in. Now, an important thing to note here is when you first go into the Monitoring Params tab, what it does is it limits the view down to just the parameters that have been changed, right? So what we see here, there's probably, 20 of them or something like that, maybe more. That's not even close to how many parameters Avantra is looking at in your SAP systems, right? This is just the view of the things that we've changed already. So as Tim's going to here, yeah, he sees the show all monitoring parameters, and you'll see the list now has really lengthened quite extensively here. And you'll see the default value column. Those are all of the Avantra defaults that as it rolls in, as it recognizes a new system, it puts all of these in place, puts the default value in place. And anywhere that there's a value that we'd like to change, if it's already changed, it's in the value column. And as you see, yep, they're the ones that are changed. They're the ones that are not changed. So if we know which parameter we want to modify, all you have to do is, like, let's say the one right above this, the HDB log full worn days. If you just select the line and then select configure on the top, and now you can make that, let's just make that 3. And then do apply on the top left. Or I'm sorry, yeah, right there. And boom, there we go. So now that's just another way. This, we could have done it the same way. We could have went into the checks, right-clicked the relevant check and made it the modification that way, or we can come in and do it this way. Now, one thing that's really important, and especially to Brenton, because Brenton, I know he likes documentation and he just want to make sure where everything is, right? So
people can't see because I haven't spoken, so they can't see the look I'm giving you right now. You just said Brenton loves documentation. That is a lie. Just putting it out there.
I'll try.
Maybe you're going. Maybe this is where you're going, Tyler. But maybe before you jump onto that topic, I'm curious as to what we just changed. How do I know what this check really did? Is that
Good question.
Is that where this question mark kind of comes in, or is there some documentation that tells me, hey, what is HDB log full worn days?
Yeah, good. That's exactly where I was going. Yeah, thank you. So, well, second one, right, when we first started, I made note of we're not using other solutions or anything like that. The way they're collecting metrics. Again, this is proprietary to us. The majority of our checks, we're not using CCMS or anything like that. So to Tim's point, yeah, like some of these, if you're new to Avantra, you might go, well, what the heck is HDB log full worn days mean? So Tim, where you were going was there's that little question mark right there. If you select that, here comes our awesome documentation. And you'll see what it did is it took us right to the database parameters. It didn't take us right to the one, but if you scroll down, Tim, you'll get down to the HDB, which is the HANA database. And then here, all the list of the HANA database checks. And I can't remember which one you clicked on, but if you just click on one of these, HDB log files warrant count, I believe, was that it? If you just select it, here is the information about that particular check. So, I'm sorry, that parameter. So here you can see the description. It configures the warning threshold for the check. Now remember, all of these parameters roll up into a check. So then it shows you which check. So reference data configures HDB log files. The default value is 5. So that's what the default value is going to be. And if you want to look at which check it configures, you can actually select the HDB log files. And then that will actually show you the check. It's weird. But if you just go down, we go down to the HDB again, log files, and now you'll see the check, right? So again, this is just kind of back up. It goes from the parameter, each of the parameters make a check. So we just went in to look at what the parameter was. Now we're looking at what the check does, and you'll see what it manages, what the check cycle is. So basic, it's going to run every five minutes. And then it depends on the DB connect. Okay, so if the DB connect goes into critical status, the HDB log files will go into an unknown status. And let me back up. If the DB connect is not working, in other words, they cannot talk to the database, this will go into an unknown status.
As opposed to critical, because otherwise we'd end up with 2 alerts that say, I've got a problem, rather than the parent alert, essentially, that allows this one to function. If that's not going to be available to us, then there's no point in it trying to even check it. It just stops and says, I can't check it. It's unknown.
So you can kind of, and that prevents alert fatigue, right? So if it goes in an unknown status, then it's not going to. So you'll see that there's a lot of things that Avantra is doing to prevent alert fatigue, which is, I think, a refreshing thing from and again, we're not a monitoring solution, just that, but when we talk about monitoring, a lot of solutions, are not looking for alert fatigue, so aren't considering it. So, cool. I think it's worth noting too, just while we're in here. So, so this is our documentation. Though this is the installation documentation and agents documentation, all that stuff. So everything about Avantra is in here. Everything is very well documented, which is very, very nice. And then what we'll see on the left-hand side, we got installation concepts, tasks, and then there's the reference section. In here is where I spend probably most of my time when I want to look things up about checks. You can see there's the different types of systems. So, instances, systems, servers, databases. So this is where you can come in here and get all the information. If you click on the left-hand, click on maybe one of the other ones here. You'll see then the list pops up here, and then you can scroll through and find what you're looking for. So,
and there's probably one other thing I'd add to that as well, Tyler, which is, so this is obviously our publicly facing documentation, but any Avantra customer also has access to our support website, which is support.avantra.com. On there, you'll find there's some kind of interesting knowledge-based documents around checks and custom checks. There's also the forums. as well, where you can ask questions from, myself, Tyler, Tim. We spend some of our time on there, but also you get some input from some of our development teams, or also some of the customers as well, on how they're using some of this stuff. So if you've questions around this stuff, and let's face it, some of these are quite complex checks and quite complex topics, that can be a great port of call if you just want to shoot a note out to some people who are using this in anger and get their input on where you need clarification.
Cool. Sweet. So, Tim, if we
custom checks,
I would say let's go into composite checks, because custom checks may
custom checks is a bit of a rabbit hole. We can spend a lot of time there.
So let's make sure before we spend too much time there, let's cover the composite check. So
cool.
So this is all, again, we got the checks, we got the monitoring parameters. Now let's do that scenario where we don't want to get notified if just one thing happens. We want to get notified if 3 things or 7 out of 10 things occur at once, and we want to get one notification on that. So Tim, on the very top, you'll see there's a configuration drop down. If you select that and select our composite checks. Cool.
Hey, one thing I noticed here is, as I've been clicking through some of these, is that there's this shortcut on the that little pop-up.
Oh yeah.
So I believe in the command box here. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so
if I know, so it's a lot like SAP, right? Where you've got the OK box or the command box, and I can just type CC, right, and take myself into custom.
Yeah.
Or into composite.
I've actually been on screen sharing sessions with customers who really love this feature because they get around Avantra so quickly. So yeah, I love that one as well. Although I don't personally use it much myself, I can definitely I could see myself using it if I was using this in anger every single morning to do all my checks.
Oh, nice. So yeah, okay, so we're in our composite checks here. You'll see we currently don't have any, so we'll go make one. So we'll just, on the left-hand side, we'll select new. And then we just need, you could put test and put 7 or whatever you want. Yeah, Tim's, yeah. Okay. And then we'll select a customer. It doesn't matter which one. Select, yeah, perfect. And then on the bottom again, here are those SAP system types again. We keep seeing these over and over again. So this is kind of the foundation. So we'll select SAP systems for this example. So these are essentially the checks we're going to combine together are going to be just SAP system checks. So now a new set of tabs have opened up here. We got the properties, the scope, design, and source. So the properties here, just the generic properties to things. If we go to the scope, in here is going to say, all right, so what systems are we talking about? So if we select the SAP systems tab there, or button, and then the drop down, this is very similar to what we call our system selectors. So now we're just going to go in and pick, okay, which systems do we want to work with? So in this one, let's just pick the customer, and then we'll just select the reason, because that's what we had selected earlier. We'll move that over to the right-hand side. Now, again, this we could go farther. We could say if it's this customer and it's Linux and it's HANA, you can make these very specific. The system selectors are my favorite thing in Avantra, because it makes the way you can parse data and select data on dashboards and notifications and automations really, really flexible and really, really easy. So, okay, cool. So we've got our selection of systems. We're just going to focus on the grouping of customers of Riesling. And now if we select the design tab, we're going to get into actually building this out. So the first thing we have to do is select our function, correct? So if you just drop that down, now these are the different kinds of functions. Essentially what this means is this is the rule set of what we're going to do with the checks. So all okay means, hey, I want to get a notification if everything is okay, if all of the checks that I have is okay, right? Sounds a little silly, but if you think about it, when you're doing automations and you're starting and stopping systems and all that stuff, maybe you want to get a notification when everything is okay, right? When all my systems come back up, right? So there's that. There's if just one thing is okay. Well, the next one, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory. If just one thing is okay, I want to get notified on. Worst is if just one thing goes into critical status. Espresso, we're going to jump over that one.
I love an espresso.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Yeah. Scripting, pretty much if else essentially. So you can do some cool things there. And then a delay is just if you want to delay it. So for now, let's get into that espresso, because I think this is the one that probably gets used the most. So what you have to do here is a little different than other parts of Avantra. The only time that this is similar is when we get into business services. But as you see there, Tim is, just clicked it and he dragged it over. It's currently red. He's got to drag it on his box. It's green. It shows that, okay, we are now okay to place it in here. So now we'll select that espresso, just select it once. And on the right-hand side, the properties have opened up. So you can actually name it here if you want. You could say 2 out of 3, let's just say, or whatever, doesn't really matter. Cool. And now our advanced mapping rule. So let's make a scenario here where we're going to select 3 checks, and we want it to be that if more than 2 of them go into the status, then we want to do something. So we're going to do number of critical, and then we're going to do the next box, the little drop down, and select the first one that greater than or equal to 2, then return critical status. Okay. So now essentially what we're saying is this composite check, as many things as we throw, many checks we put in here, this composite check is going to go red or critical when at least 2 things go into critical status, right? So kind of, again, just to kind of relive the scenario, if we've got performance problems, the typical thing is, CPU and memory, and maybe there's some other things as well. If just CPU spikes up, we don't care. But if CPU and memory both spike up, okay, now we care. This is kind of the scenario we're building out. All right, so Tim, if you select apply on the top.
Yeah, this is like that use case you mentioned earlier, Tyler, isn't it? Where, Monday morning, that, the processes generally get hammered on a Monday morning because everyone's logging in at the same time for the first time since the weekend. But actually, it really typically is only a problem if the CPU gets hammered and the memory gets hammered and your network latency increases beyond a certain threshold. Then you've got serious issues, and that's when you want an alert to go out. So it really is one of those use cases as a good example. I've seen that one used to good effect before.
Again, preventing alert fatigue.
Yes. We should get t-shirts that say that.
We should. That'd be awesome.
I'm actually going to message. Okay, there we go.
Marketing. All right. All right. So we've got our rule set now. So now let's add some checks. So Tim, on the bottom left, you'll see there's an input checks, and we'll select our little drop down here. And then we'll see there's the built-in checks. Those are all the native checks, the custom checks, which we're going to next, or we can even do other composite checks and build composite checks based on composite checks, which can be pretty cool. But for now, we'll just do the built-in checks. So here are all the checks that are relevant for SAP systems that are for the customer Riesling. Remember, we did that in our scope. So we can just, Tim, just for example's sake here, let's just say a workload. If you could drag that workload, again, it's going to turn red. We'll drag it onto the brown. Yep, there we go. So there's our workload. And now let's also say update stat as well. Maybe update stat and drag it on. Yep, perfect. And then let's just grab a couple others here. Doesn't really matter. Update short dumps, lock table maybe. Yeah, short dumps works as well. And then lock table, and you can just, yeah, perfect. And we could keep adding them, but I think for example's sake here, what we've done is we've added 4 checks. If these 4 checks, now the ones we grabbed maybe aren't the best example, but you can kind of imagine something here where you can say, all right, if out of these 4 checks, if they independently go into critical status, I don't care. But if 2 of them, or 2 of the 4 go into critical status, then I want to know. So there we go. All we'd have to do, and we won't do it here, is on the top, or I'm sorry, if we get on the top left, select save, and there should be a little button that pops up when you select this. And it says, do you want to set to active? We'll keep it unactive right now, just for demo purposes. We'll just do okay. So you can actually activate it or keep it deactivated as well. So that basically, from a high level, that's our composite checks. You can see these can be very, very helpful and very powerful.
Yeah. Absolutely. This actually answers a question that someone had asked me about this particular topic last week, so I can go back to that person looking like I know what I'm talking about. So that's quite handy.
Nice. Awesome.
I can see a really good use case scenario for this in the all okay feature where I've had the opportunity to take care of customers that have to do Windows patching. So you could select, and we would do it once a month on a Saturday night. So you could automate all that, right? Within Avantra. You could then set your composite check. So select from this customer all the Windows servers and we always did test and production on different weekends. So you could set all non-production and then throw your check in here for that. And when everything's back up and running, send a notification that everything is started. And so I think, yeah, there's some valid use cases for this, definitely.
And to add on that, Tim, some of our customers have actually come back to us in the exact same scenario and said, "Hey, listen, I was doing a migration or something like that, or an upgrade, some kind of project, and after that, they want to do some kind of testing, right? Now, not so much functional testing, which would be awesome, but just so much like, all right, so not only is the system up, but are there, spools going through and all that stuff. So essentially, Avantra then can have the system go up and then actually make sure our spools in an okay status, right? If not, maybe spools aren't going through, Avantra would recognize, oh, there's a problem, it'll go into critical status, and then this check would not be okay. So it also can kind of do it that it can kind of actually look into the system slightly as well and look to make sure not only is the system up, but are things okay? So pretty cool as well. You guys, anything else on composite checks? I think that's really it.
No, I think that's pretty clear. I think we should dive into my kind of favorite one, which is the custom checks. I think you can do a lot with that. And then suddenly a combination of the out-of-the-box checks that we provide plus custom checks that you as a customer, as a user can create, combined together with a composite check, it's immensely powerful. It really is. So I think let's just dive straight in.
Let's get in. So first things first, and this is the ongoing battle internal to Avantra, is what do we call these things? So we keep calling it custom checks. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that because when I think custom, they think it's probably going to be a lot of customization. It's actually not that difficult. They're pretty straightforward and pretty easy. But Brenton and I know we've many of us have had that discussion
at one point.
Oh, that's good. All right, so Tim, if we wouldn't mind, on the top, there's the configuration drop down. And we'll select our custom checks. So we've got a whole bunch in here already, but just to kind of before we go into any examples, on the left-hand side, we'll select new, and our custom checkbox will come up here. So these are all of the custom checks, and you'll see they're all in groupings on the left-hand side. So if you select the security, compliance, and auditing, on the right-hand side, all of the different kinds of custom checks come up. There's a lot in here. This is just the custom security checks. Again, so these are things that are above and beyond all the what we call native checks that come in automatically when Avantra recognizes. If you select on the left-hand side again, just the business process monitoring, you see there's a lot of stuff in here as well. So the BW upload times, specific IDOCs, if you want to look at specific jobs. And you might question this and say, well, aren't you guys already doing this? We are. So like, yeah, how many batch jobs failed, all that, we're already doing that. But maybe there's a specific job that's really important for month-end closing, right? And let's actually walk through this scenario. We'll come back into this and look at more of them. But okay, so you select the SAP jobs on the bottom. If you just type in Tim's job, okay, and then we'll do create. And you're fine there. Let's do. So you'll see in the bottom half of the screen again. So it's popped in. We got the check name. If you wanted to put a description in, if you wanted to designate it to a specific customer grouping, Tim's, you can do the undock there. And then you'll see what's really important is right under the customer, there's an execution. And what this means is, remember we talked about real-time monitoring and daily before. Maybe you want this to be a daily check, in this example, let's do a real-time monitoring. And we want, let's say that we want this check to run every 3 minutes instead of every 5 minutes. So the basic, if you leave this empty, it'd be every 5 minutes. For some reason, we want this to run every 3 minutes. So you can actually modify that, as you can see. And so then we're going to select our systems. So right below that, you'll see systems, and we're going to do a define specific ad hoc. We could have a pre-built one using a system selectors. That's a discussion for another day here, but we'll do create. And then we'll select our box of SAP system search criteria. And then let's do this one. Let's say everything that's production. So let's do system role and just move production over. Cool. All right. And then we'll just do save and close. So essentially this is going to run on all production systems. Again, we could have drilled down further if we wanted. And let's call this Brenton's payroll. So this is the job, Brenton's payroll.
You're writing me a check?
No.
You're writing us some.
Yeah, this is, yeah. And that's why we want to make sure that this thing runs. All right. So, and Tim, I think if you put an underscore instead of a space or no, or nothing there. Yeah. So this is what this is. This is the actual SAP job name that we want to watch within the ABAP stack. This is the job, Brenton's payroll. And there's usually a timestamp after it. Right. So the hard thing with this is how would you do this if there's a timestamp that's always going to be different? So, yep, exactly. You can put an asterisk in there. But let's say there's other jobs that's called Brenton's payroll release. We don't care about that job. So we can do the excludes and just call this one Brenton's underscore payroll release. Cool. Okay, cool. And then let's say this job, we only want to monitor it on client 100. We don't care if it's on anything else. We'll just do a whitelist and then 100. So if it runs on, if we got a client 300 or whatever, what have you, we don't care. If we kept that open, it would run across the different clients. Now we can say, all right, let's say I want to know if it runs, except for if it's Brenton himself running this. All right, so we can do an SAP user.
I can run my own payroll. I like that idea.
Right. And we'll do a blacklist and Brenton, because we don't care if Brenton's running his own payroll. This is going to be a great example.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we should do the next video on auditing.
Oh, this is awesome. All right, so then we get into consider the last amount of days. That's fine. We don't need to put anything in there. Select jobs started after. Maybe we don't care if it runs after 1 o'clock or what have you, but we can just keep them blank, just kind of talking through some of these. If the job's already been canceled, we'll call it critical, which is already there. And then if the job's not found, status if job not found, let's make this critical as well. All right, and now we get into the custom part of it, right? So this is now, if a specific job fails, we're already going to get a notification if these jobs fail on a list of the jobs in the daily checks. We're going to get that list already. But we really care about, in this specific Brenton's payroll job here, is the number of simultaneous jobs. So if it's running simultaneously, right? Brenton's trying to get as many payrolls as he possibly can. He's running it 3 times simultaneously with itself. Well, so we want to know. So let's put it in warning when it goes to 2. And we'll do a critical 3 because we don't really care if Brenton runs 2 of them at the same time. We care if he runs 3 of them at the same time. So 2 is going to go into warning status, 3 times is going to go into critical status. Now let's add some other criteria. Now we could leave the rest blank and Avantra would just look at that one thing, but maybe we also care now if the job usually runs at 2 in the morning, but today if it runs if you do 03:00, if it comes 3 o'clock in the morning, and it still has not run, we want to know. So we can just do a 03, kind of the hour 03:00.
So you're talking about a start delay though here, right?
Correct. Yes.
So if the job is supposed to execute at the top of the hour and it doesn't run until 2:05, we're gonna get a warning.
Yeah, that works. Yep.
Right.
Exactly. Cool. And then So, and basically too, actually, we know that this actually by the hour. So this would be if it's usually supposed to run at midnight and it hasn't run until 3 minutes past, or if it's supposed to run, and then after 10 minutes past.
Isn't that okay?
Then we get into the same thing. So here's this now maximum job runtime. If it usually runs for an hour, and today it's run, if it's still running past 4 o'clock, we want to know about that. The minimum job runtime, I think this one's really interesting. I think this is one that often gets overlooked. Is let's say this job usually runs for an hour, and today it runs for like a minute, but it doesn't actually, maybe it didn't, but it still shows as successful in SAP, right? And again, the example of a payroll job is probably a bad example. Maybe it's like an upload or something like that to a different system, and it usually takes an hour. Today it runs and it ran for, a minute and showed as successful. Did it actually do what it's supposed to do? So you can actually have a minimum runtime as well, which is really, really cool, I think. And I think that often gets overlooked. Then the last one down here is maximum time since last job has run, or last time the job has started. So this is kind of, if the job is supposed to run daily and someone took it out of, is it released or scheduled status? I can't remember. It's supposed to run. Release. But it takes it out of takes it out of release status. SAP itself is going to think, well, hey, someone manually came in and told me to do it, and so it's not going to throw an error. So Avantra can recognize and say, hey, hold on, this job was supposed to run, every 24 hours and it hasn't run. So you can do that as well. So these are just some of the different criteria in just the SAP jobs custom check, right? So we can get, as you can see, we can get pretty granular here. On the top left, then Tim, if you select the apply, and we won't activate it, we'll just keep this deactivated for now. Just select no. All right, cool. So now we set up that one. Maybe Tim, if you could select the custom checks tab again on the top of your screen. You can do configuration, yeah, custom checks. I think we went in the composite there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong one, didn't I?
Yeah, no worries. Cool. So, all right, so here, again, we've got our list. So if we wouldn't mind going into the new button again, and we can just take a look through some more of these here. Again, we could probably spend 48 hours just talking about all of these. There's a lot of different things. And as you saw with just the simplistic batch job, there's a lot we can do in there. So Tim, if you maybe just select server checks as well. So this is where we can get into, we won't have to go into each of these, but we can get into disk IO. We can get into, did a file get dropped on the operating system? We can also look at, can we ping something? Can we get to a certain web address? Maybe there's a portal that's up and running that is not SAP based. Well, from one of your systems, you can actually go and check that. Is it up and running? We can get into the log adapter, which is really powerful. We can look and parse log files of anything, right? So if even a homegrown application, if it's got log files, we can parse those log files looking for certain, criteria. We get into network response and all that stuff. So, I mean, you can start to see this is very, very powerful. We can even, you see there's a run program there in run.js. We can actually, if you have a solution or something you want to monitor that is not built into Avantra, maybe it's to a third-party application, and you actually want to go in and you've got a script, you can actually run that script and have criteria that looks at, okay, I'm checking it. Did this particular criteria happen? Yes. Okay, it's going to go into critical status within Avantra, right? So that could be at the OS layer. It could be at the database layer on the left-hand side of the database checks, or it could be even, a JavaScript, which means you can even go into SAP and call bodies, which gets really, really advanced in Avantra. So, Brenton, I don't know, is there any specific custom checks you think are really, really cool that you want to bring up?
I think probably the one I'd probably talk about, although I'm not sure if we don't have it on this system to showcase, but I thought it's probably worth talking through. There was one that our CTO Bernd has been working on over on the last kind of few days. It only took him an hour or so to write. It was using the Suzy package manager to pull. I think you saw this one as well, isn't it? He pulled all of the package levels and patch levels of the packages that were installed on a Suzy server, so that they could do a check to make sure that the patching was successful, or that they were up to date, or if there were updates available, and they visualize that, or he was visualizing it on a dashboard, which I thought was a really cool showcase of the power of custom checks, because we deliver quite a bit out of the box, but it's about those fringe use cases that are vitally important to customers and specifically to organizations. They're the ones where, a Run.js custom check, you can pretty much do whatever you like with some of this stuff. So in this case, he was logging into to servers, running the command. Can you remember the name of the command on Suzy? I'm more of an Ubuntu guy, but it was... I'll see if I can find the name of the command, but he was just running the command, which basically pulled the full list of packages that were installed, and also the patch levels of those packages, and then just basically taking that information and putting it out in a way that could be visualized as the output of a custom check. Really quite cool stuff. That's probably the coolest one I've seen. What about you, Tyler? Have you seen any other cool ones?
Oh boy. So I think it's very, very simple, but I think one of the coolest things that I've seen is an organization that's done some very simple pings to things that are not SAP related. So whether it was like printers or it was like scan guns and things of that nature, and they've took a bunch of those things, all these like really, again, they're pretty simplistic checks, but they built out a bunch of these custom checks to go out and do those things. But where the magic actually happened in Avantra then is, again, this is probably for a future thing, but they actually then mapped everything out in what's called one of our business processes. So that was awesome, being able to see essentially now Avantra became, the thing that's looking in their environment for not just SAP, but also in this case, their assembly line, which was really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Tim, if you want to quickly stop sharing, I'm going to quickly share my screen. I found it in a different system that we have. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just make sure I'm closing some tabs that don't need to be open. So share desktop 3. And cool. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah. Got it.
So this is one of the ones he was working on. Literally, so it was the ZYPPER command is the one I couldn't remember the name of. So here he's using a Run.js custom check, which he built himself, and literally going through and saying, okay, building up, add table, column, name, summary, kind, status, category, created on interactive, and just processing the XML that was coming out of this command. So you can actually say XML output. And get the patch levels of all the packages that were installed in this system. And it looks something like this. So when it's run, it looks something like this, which, name, server, summary, kind, what's the status, category, and then some stuff around whether it needed any extra stuff for an interaction. I mean, he did this in about, I think he told me it was 45 minutes. So it was not really that difficult to come up with. But the nice thing is that this is its own check that you can then just build into a composite check, or bubble up to a dashboard, and you can see suddenly whether your servers are actually up to the latest patch level. And then on top of that, because if you kind of put the full picture together at this point and say, okay, great, got this custom check and it's doing some really cool stuff that are specific to my landscape. But then if you combine that with a composite check, okay, great, you're eliminating alert fatigue by bringing a few different things together. Okay, then go a step further and say, actually, do you know what? When I detect that one of my servers actually doesn't have the latest patches installed, why don't I kick off an automation to go and tell that server to go and update itself at the next available window? You can start to bring together this chain of events, starting from an analysis, a check, which kicks off some automata, which kicks off an actual patching cycle, which then brings your systems up to the latest patch levels. All of that is possible within the platform that we're showcasing over these videos. And I hope people are starting to see suddenly that the building up of all these individual features creates an immensely powerful AI ops platform. Within which you can, we deliver quite a bit out of the box, but the possibilities really are endless. in a lot of cases, because you can just build this stuff up and really start to automate some of those foundational tasks that have to be run in your landscape. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome point. I mean, that is the vision of Avantra, right? I mean, it's make your life easier.
Yep. Okay. I did the recap yesterday. Tyler, do you want to do the recap today? What have we covered?
Yeah, I'd love to. So basically today was all checks, and more checks. So we talked about the how each check, there's a real-time monitoring and there's a daily. We talked about how we can confirm a check to prevent alert fatigue, and how we can actually look at it in different ways, see the history of one particular check. We then talked about how we can modify the settings for that. So, whatever that configuration, there's multiple parameters that roll up into each check. We then look at the monitoring parameters tab, and you'll see that there was a ton of things in there. Look at how we can change it actually in there as well. Then we got into where our documentation is on everything. We talked about our composite checks and how those are very, very powerful for multiple reasons. And then we got into the custom checks, and surprisingly, we didn't go too far into the black hole of custom checks. We somehow managed to keep it pretty good. So, and I'm sure hopefully there might be comments and questions on what other things we can do within custom checks, and love to hear any questions. Again, if you are one of our customers, if you go to our forum that Brenton has talked about, we actually have some things in there, some custom checks that can be added and things like that. So like HANA mini checks, all this stuff. So some really cool things that are already, at your fingertips.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think as we go through more of these live streams, I have absolutely no doubt that as we come across use cases that warrant the deep diving into a custom check, I'm thinking that especially this one here with the CZ patch levels, we might do a whole session on how we built that up. Because we have the JavaScript engine built in here, and you can build a lot on top of it, but it's useful to see the whole building it up from nothing, from a blank sheet of paper. Right, where do I start? What are the basic commands of being able to interact with the system that underpins the check, but also with the wider web, and being able to pull in parameters and that kind of stuff. Those kind of little nitty gritty things that would trip you up if you were building your own custom check. So maybe we'll cover those in a bit more detail during one of our deep sessions. I think we'll. Welcome, DJ. I think we'll be able to go through them in more detail. All right. I think that's it for this live stream. So thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Tim, for driving. I know we threw you in at the deep end there on that one. So
all good.
I think we got to a great place. And stay tuned for more of these on the channel. So please do subscribe to the Avantra channel and to the Mastering Avantra playlist. We'll endeavor to post on Twitter when we're about to do a live stream and when we're on the live stream. And again, if you have anything you want to see us cover in more detail, or if a topic you want to see us go into a bit more detail on, please do let us know. You can contact us via the forums. You can contact myself and Tyler on Twitter. Tim apparently doesn't like Twitter, so he's not on Twitter. Although we're going to change that at some point. And yeah, so looking forward to seeing you all on the next live stream. Thanks, guys, and see you again soon.